Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this August 4th, 2020 Zion City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Here.
Commissioner Holmes?
Here.
Commissioner Frierson?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
Mayor McKinney?
Here. Item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Bremner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
All of us are calling. Please join me on the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bremner. Kathy Donna McDowell is going to offer our prayer this evening. I was going to say some Kathy Champagne, but Donna McDowell is going to offer our prayer this evening.
Let's go ahead and pray, please. Thank you, Father, so much for being here with us. Thank you for each one of these men and women and for what they do to help our city be a great place to live. Not only the ones that sit here, but the ones that work in the different departments, the ones that keep us safe, that keeps our roads going well and our apartments safe. We just thank you that you are watching over our city. We especially want to thank you for good neighbors and for those who care about those that live here, and they do their best to make this a good place to live. Would you please give wisdom to the council tonight as they make decisions, that what they talk about and how they discuss it and the decisions that are made would just be honoring to you. And I just thank you. Thank you for our mayor and these commissioners, and I pray your blessing upon them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Donald. Item number 4, agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes from any of the commissioners? No agenda changes. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Frierson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 5, citizens' comments. I want to thank all the citizens for coming tonight to our city council meeting. For those that are here to talk to us about issues in the community or share your thoughts with us, please understand that all comments are limited to 3 minutes. Under the Open Meetings Act, there is no requirement that a response to a public comment be given, but in the unusual circumstance that a response is merited, one will be provided. The city has a general policy to not comment on employment, litigation, or other related issues. The first person there, Mary Lou Hildebrand.
Mayor and City Council members, I would like to report to you that as the volunteers have given 434.25 hours of service to our city in the month of July. This equals to $11,043 of savings to the city, as the volunteers have assisted with traffic control for the police and fire department, as well as rehab for them when needed. We have controlled traffic for the prayer walk and for the food pantries at Abiding Love and for Humanity's First Food Pantry at the Leisure Center. We have assisted for down power lines and for a tree down on Sheridan Road and the power pole that was taken down by a truck at Wendy's. We have worked to keep the citizens safe from flooded streets, and especially the viaduct at 173 in Galilee. The first Tuesday of every month, we sit by the siren poles and report whether they function correctly or not. And last month, we controlled the perimeter of a crime scene for 8 hours while the investigation team did their job. We have 23 members on the active roster and 8 reserve members. Many of these volunteers also serve duty nights at the ESDA Center to keep building and grounds and equipment in working order. If anyone is interested in seeing what we do, feel free to come to the ESDA Center at 3222 27th Street on Thursday nights from 7 to 9. We are located immediately to the west of Public Works, and we'd be glad to give you a tour and answer any questions you might have. Experience is not required. If you are interested in volunteering to help our city, go to the City of Zion website and fill out an application. We will be glad to offer you training in all of the things we do. Submitted respectfully, and thank you for your time and support.
Thank you very much for all you do, too, as well. You and that's the group. Denise Lear.
Good evening, Mayor McKinney, City Council people. And I'd like to thank first Ms. Spooner. Thank you so much for your quick response to my emails. I have several issues, Mayor and City Council. The first is, I'd like to know if anyone from the City Council has ever dialed 911 for a police emergency to get the response time. Has it been slow for you? Because it's been very slow for me each and every time I've called. Each and every time. And I've had several instances in the last few months where I've had to call the police, and the response time was terrible. As well as the time the shooting was at my house and I had to call 5 times. My next issue is, why is it so dark in the city streets? It looks like the rural South here. You can't see your hand in front of your face anymore. The darker you make it, the more crime we're going to have. Those that would have cameras that we can some kind of way deter crimes, the streets are too dark. They are black at night here, and I don't know why. My third thing is, I don't know if anyone saw my comment on Facebook about the litter in Zion. I've been a citizen of Zion for over 50 years, and I'm appalled by the way the city streets look. People drive by, throw things out their windows. Kids walk by, throw things down. We need to hold a property manager, somebody responsible for these streets. It is terrible. We deteriorate people wanting to buy homes. It's bad. Along with our school ratings, it's not helping. And my last thing is there any ordinance about vicious animals in apartment buildings in the city of Zion? I live in a 6-unit building, and there are 2 pit bulls, one in front of me, one on the side of me. One bit a kid last week. One is torn up apartment in there. I don't know if the landlords just lack concern, but there are 2 pit bulls in a 2-bedroom apartment, one with 2 children, one with 1. And it's terrible. The smell alone over there is terrible. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sherry Neal.
Good evening. How are you guys? So I know Brian Klossman from Bottom Line Innovations reached out to you today, Mayor, and talked to you as well, Rich. He couldn't be here, and Kim also had to work tonight. So I just thought I would come and make one last statement about their project that they're doing. Understanding like the rules, I just have one other question about home rule versus non-home rule, and the ordinances that we have for signs in the whole process, is that state statute or is that local ordinance?
It's local ordinance.
It is. Thank you very much. Just because I get confused on if it's home rule, we have to go by state statute and how that works. So just a couple of the points that Brian asked me if I would be willing to make is that right now the depression rate is really high for people across the country, obviously. And the reason that Brian and Kim put this project together was because they wanted to try and do something that could help shift that energy. Brian today, he was like, you never know if like that's the one thing that somebody will read and it'll shift them from making a poor choice versus a positive choice. He brought up that the federal and the state government right now, they're changing their rules for the COVID response based on COVID. They're changing rules and they're mitigating circumstances to help in the community. And the prayer is that this project could end up being a partnership with the city and Bottom Line Innovations to spread joy. It would be at no cost to the city. In order to do that. And just for everybody that's in the room, we have a landlord and a resident that put together a plan, and they made big banners that say, "You are beautiful," like in Chicago. And but they made them too big. They're outside of the sign ordinances. And so there's a lot of hoops and a lot of expense to overcome that barrier. And my hope is that, and I don't even know if it's possible, David, is that I know that, here's the rules and here's what we have to do, but if there's, anything outside to be able to just think bigger, to figure out how to be able to put something like this in place. He put through a ton of expense and cares so much about just trying to make the community better. And it's that a sign that's a couple of feet too big ends up being they have to pay $125 to have any resident within 250 feet get approval for a sign that says you are beautiful. So I don't know. I understand rules and regulations. I just promised Brian I would come and make that pitch. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Andy Mitchell. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? I kind of agree with her about the lighting around downtown. I mean, around the neighborhoods and everything. The other thing I wanted to mention was down by the train station. I know it's under the Zion Park District. I don't know. I just think it would be neat and fun if it was fixed up like a nice little park area where families can get out and do things. I know there's a pond there where you can fish. I just thought it'd be neat to kind of fix that up. And down by the train station, the road is all messed up, like the parking lot there. So, and then that's another thing I wanted to talk about is the streets around here. I mean, there's so many potholes, and off on the side of the roads, the gravel. I mean, it's like literally so deep. So, I'd like people to get on top of that, because I hear a lot of people arguing about that. So I just want to make sure that the roads get fixed. All right?
All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was kind of nervous. So.
Oh, no. It's been known that people would rather die than speak in front of a group. I would choose to speak in front of a group first. Clyde McLemore.
Good evening, Council. Haven't been around in a little while. I know you know the crisis that's going on in this country. I've been traveling around doing a little investigating protests and stuff like that. But this is my home, and I want to say we've been doing pretty good here, thank God. That although we have had some shootings that I don't like, and my movement, Black Lives Matter, not my movement, but the movement of Black Lives Matter does not get involved in community crimes. But we took a step different, and police chief ain't here, but I talked with police chief, and we got with the violence interrupters and brought them in here in the city of Zion to work with the police so we could curb this on the front end so we don't have to look at it on the back end. We're doing this out of our pocket. We're raising money to get this done, paying staff to go out there and just walk the streets, walk the communities. And I talked to the chief, and he said, sounds good to him. So if y'all was wondering why we had the press conference at the police station last week, that's what that was about. That we're trying to work in the community to make our homes a safer place. And we don't have to be like, and I ain't going to say Chicago is all that bad, but y'all know what it is. Second of all, y'all know I work for Willie Wilson. And I know y'all seen the signs everywhere. Yeah, y'all know But anyway, Willie got to get rid of, he want to donate over 20,000 face masks. So he was here Sunday, and he was in Waukegan. So you know me, y'all know the bully that I am. You know I got some bully aspects in me. So the bully that I am, I'm meeting with him tomorrow, and we want to come to Zion on Friday and give away boxes of masks because we don't know how long this epidemic will be going on, and we want everybody to be safe. Not no one or two masks, a box of masks. Matter of fact, I got a box that I wanted to get in the Carmel House. I need to talk to Sherry about that. Get in the Carmel House to give some of them over there because I got some to donate to them now. But we want to get boxes. We don't want to, So we might do it at Salem Food. I don't know exactly, and anybody here Y'all know my Facebook page, Clyde McLemore, and that'll give us exactly the point. But I want to get them in the community. Third thing, I know I ain't got for 3 minutes. Black Lives Matter has been ran for the last 5 years right there at 2900 Elijah on my kitchen table. I am happy to say Saturday, August 8th at 3 o'clock, all right, I'm going. We are having our grand opening of our office at 111 County Street. 111 County Street from 3 to 5. We're finally out of my kitchen table. My family can finally eat a dinner at the table now. We opening, I'm inviting everybody to come out. It's a free event. Just come out and just see. As anybody got some questions or anything, please come out. We got our board members and the senators, and everybody said they're going to be there. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. Kathy Champagne.
Good evening. I wish to address the issue of prayer at City Council meetings again. In 2014, a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that municipal or county bodies may host prayers at meetings. This ruling also suggests that local clergy members invited to deliver the opening prayers should strive to be inclusive of all religion and non-religion. Zion is an ethnically diverse, majority-minority community. Our citizens are diverse in their religious beliefs as well. We have atheist, Baptist, Catholic, Jewish, Lutheran, and Methodist, as well as various evangelical faiths. Since January, there have been 17 meetings. Prayer was offered at 14 meetings by 14 men, 1 woman, 13 of whom are white, 2 African American, and all evangelical, and 6 times representing the CCC. In whose mind could this parade of predominantly old, white, evangelical men possibly be a balanced representation of the citizens of Zion? Recently, in another 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled churches are not exempt from limitations on assembly. Should Governor Pritzker issue an executive order limiting assembly, which includes churches, failure to comply will be breaking the law. This is a Supreme Court ruling. There is no further appeal. Executive Order 2020-43 is still in effect. Quote, religious organizations are encouraged to take steps to ensure social distancing, the use of face coverings, and implementation of other public health measures, end quote. I would argue that those churches choosing to ignore this directive are not supported by the Bible. Leviticus 18:5, you shall keep my laws and my rules, by the pursuit of which man shall live. Jewish theologians interpret this to mean the mitzvot were given to live by, not to die by. To quote Rabbi Naftali Seiberberg, now it is time for us to sanctify God's holy name by the way we live rather than the way we die. Think about that the next time you're told it's okay to attend church, sit together, forego masks, and not live in fear. By all means, do not live in fear. Live thoughtfully with consideration for the lives and health of your fellow citizen. Echoing Rabbi Seiberberg, sanctify God's holy name by the way you live. Thank you.
Yeah. Item number 6, consent agenda.
Approval of minutes of a regular meeting held on July 21st, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye.
Bills, vouchers, 135418 through 135528, drawn on Huntington National Bank, total $878,768.83.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the bills. Second.
Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 7, consider passing ordinance as follows. Item 7A, authorizing and approving a proposal and work agreement between the City of Zion and Dagan and Associates LLC for the City of Zion per city attorney.
Mr. Chair, Chairman and Commissioner, thank you for your time. Items 7A and 8A are somewhat related, and they are related to the donation we approved at the last meeting. Regarding item 7A, we would like to have an environmental study known as a Phase 1 environmental survey to determine if further environmental studies are warranted for taking title or for acquiring the donation parcel. Deegan and Associates has done successful work for the city before, and this is a commercially reasonable request based on the nature of the transaction at hand. Anytime you buy a commercial property, environmental studies are done, much like a radon test would be done if you bought a residential property. And if the chair doesn't mind, I can go into a little bit on item 8A because we're on the same issue.
Go.
Okay.
Proceed.
Regarding item 8A, this is to provide for additional due diligence of the donation parcel as well. Of course, as contracts for services become available, will be brought for ratification. The reason that we are bringing this up at this point in time is we only have a limited time for due diligence. We have 45 days plus a 15-day extension if we do undertake the environmental studies. And all these steps would be commercially reasonable and sound and standard for a transaction of this kind. And for example, we just received today a quote for an Alta survey for the property. It is a very reasonable offer for a high-grade Alta survey from a surveyor that has done an extensive amount of work for the city before. I'd like to move on this right away because we only have a limited time. So if we would, and I would ask for a favorable approval of both items 7A and 8A, even though we're only dealing with 7A now, to allow us to undertake due diligence on this property to ensure that it's wise for the city to take title. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your time.
Is there a motion to approve, authorizing and approving a proposal and work agreement between the City of Zion and Deegan and Associates?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Sorry, the amount was 3,500.
That's correct. Okay.
Has such a study, prior to even consideration for the city to have that property, been done?
It has not, because we have a very strong termination clause for our due diligence. So normally people, I initially asked if we could get a license agreement to do the due diligence before we even entered into the contract. And the donor reminded me that they would be donating this property for free. They didn't want us to undertake our due diligence until we had a contract. So for us to get this far along, I had essentially to agree to these terms, which, as you know, are standard terms. So you do your due diligence after you get the signature on the contract, as they said. So no, it has not. I did approach that with the donor, and they rejected.
Are there additional questions?
Yes. Attorney, can you speak to what we will be looking for from this study as far as whether or not it would be a no-go?
Yes. So we will undertake this study, and this study will tell us essentially if there needs to be what's referred to as a Phase 2 environmental study or not. The Phase 2 is what we normally consider an environmental study, where they do borings. Those borings are essentially just like they sound. They do drillings in the property, and they determine if there is contamination or to what level. I'm not a prognosticator, but this is a property that has been used for industrial manufacturing purposes before. It will likely never be used for residential purposes. As such, we will scope our Phase 2 for the intended purposes of whatever it would be in the future. For now, municipal use, as we agreed. Probably later, a logistics center or something like that, warehouse, storage, industrial manufacturing, maybe a distribution center. That was notwithstanding. This is a step 1, a Phase 1, to get to a Phase 2. If the Phase 1 comes back completely clean, essentially we're off to the races. Then we're good on that. We can check that off in the appropriate box. But we may be coming back for a Phase 2 environmental study, which Deegan has already, I've already told them that we need to move fast, and they would be prepared to make us an offer at that point in time. I didn't want to bring that up. I'm not an internal optimist, but maybe we do catch a proverbial break on phase one, and it comes back clean for these permits, or we're relatively clean for these permits.
Would that still be within the 45 days for the phase two, or?
I negotiated an extension period of 15 days in the event that we triggered environmental studies. So I also informed Deegan, even though there is, I think, a 20 to 25 day period on the top part of page 3 of the proposal, that I said I need it done faster, quite frankly. And I said, that is something that we'll negotiate for. We just need to get this done as soon as possible. If it comes up that we don't have our phase 2 results back, I don't want to sound offensive, but I will threaten the termination of the contract if we don't have our due diligence done. It's a no up until it's a yes. If that makes sense, Commissioner. At least that would be my advice.
And then additionally, so if I recall, there's wetlands around the property, so as far as evaluating and carrying costs with the IPA and stuff like that, would that be part of phase 1 or phase 2?
That would be actually an independent study. And I can talk to that, Commissioner, if you'd like me to. That would probably be more under item 8A, which I think is appropriate to talk about now. But there's 3 things I'd really like to look at, or I would advise the city to look at when making its determination of taking title to the property. First, the inspection of the physical premises. That includes the building and any costs that are associated with the wetlands on it. You're absolutely correct. I don't know if it's a proper term, but it's a tributary. That is the outflow parcel to Trumpet Park. So we need to ensure how much money, for as long as we own it, or don't lease it out, it'll cost to maintain that waterway. I've already talked to the Director of Public Works and the Building Commissioner, or Building Director, about those issues. They have been tremendously helpful with me on this, as has been the city administrator. So that's one, and also, obviously, it's a physical structure. What concerns me about that is not only, going back to part 1, the possibility of asbestos or contaminants in the property, but also the roof. The building director made a very good point that it's an expensive roof. And so he made a good suggestion that we have someone who has that type of expertise go out there and take a look at it to make sure that we're not buying a property where the roof is more than the land value. That would be very extreme because it's probably a very valuable property, but it's worth looking at. The other 2 issues are also simple. I'll go back to what I said before, a survey. So I would really like to get the survey. We received a quote for $3,500 for a Alta survey. As you know, I have some background in real estate. It's a very reasonable offer for an Alta survey. And that would allow us to determine the property line, appropriate property lines, encroachments, or easements on the property. Related to that is a title. We really should do a title search on the property to ensure that there's no liens, encumbrances, mortgages, or other, as they call it, clouds on the title that would impair the use and or value of it. Again, my guess is all these things come back well, but I don't want to come back to you and say my guess was wrong at some point down the road. I think it's worth it to do the due diligence for the possible value and possible risk associated with taking the title. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Additional questions? We have a motion and a second on item 7A. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor Kinney?
Aye. And since item 8A was discussed as well, can we get a motion to authorize the city attorney and city staff to take all necessary and reasonable steps to commence undertaking complete due diligence for the city's possible acquisition of the real property located at 3905 Illinois Route 173 in Zion, Illinois.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Additional questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor Kinney?
Aye. Item number 8B, discussion regarding financial status and future planning per Administrator Nagel.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to try and keep this very succinct tonight because the intent of this is not to come up with any solutions tonight or come up with any answers. The analogy I used is that I want to come up with a table of contents for the book we're going to write on how we're going to address our financial situation. As you know, we're showing a $1.5 million operating deficit in this year's budget. We talked about filling that gap with borrowing later on in the year should we not be able to offset that through other cuts or revenue items. I want to make sure that we're not starting the discussion in November when we find out if any of this stuff comes through, rather than having a plan for November. I would like to start having a series of discussions leading up to that in hopes that whatever plans we come up with, whatever ideas we have, we don't need to implement because we can get something in the meantime between now and then. But I think that talking about it, starting that discussion in November is too late. We also will have some union contracts that are going to be coming up and expiring in April of next year. And I would like to start negotiations in November, December on those as well. So a lot of this will come into play. What I want to give real quick is I have a recap here of some of the revenue side items. We've all been familiar with them and different bits and pieces, but I kind of want to give a status update. The first one being the Stranded Act, the nuclear spent fuel compensation that we've partnered with all the other taxing bodies and trying to get pushed through Congress. It is sitting in committee in both the House and the Senate. We are still continuing to try and push that and get that out of committee onto the floor for a vote, or attached to stimulus or stimulus legislation should we be able to do that. Everyone's kind of going into election mode right now, so we're trying to double down on that and push this and say we need to get this now, but I don't know how much Congress is actually going to take up and do in the short term, but we are continuing to push on that. We're still hopeful that we're going to see some efforts result from that, but it is one of those things that's kind of out of our control other than continuing to push and come up with different ideas on how to get that through. CARES Act funding, that was the first stimulus package that was passed at the federal level. There was money given to the county, $121 million to Lake County. They made an allocation of $20 million to municipalities based on COVID relief. We are still working with the county on what to submit, how to get that funding, how to get access to that funding. I'm hoping that by the time we have the next meeting to have an update on that. It is moving pretty quickly, but I don't want to say anything certain yet until that money's in the bank, it hasn't happened. But that'll be an update that we'll have coming up. I'm going to jump down to the last one because it's kind of related. HEROES Act legislation and potential municipal funds. The HEROES Act is the second stimulus package that was talked about. The House passed that either 11 or 12 weeks ago. The Senate has kind of sat on it. There were some things in there that the Senate had issues with. They wanted to kind of see play out based on the pandemic and the results. So I think they're in negotiations on the HEROES Act, but there was, in the House version, there was direct funding to municipalities based on basically like a CDBG formula, which could result in significant funding for Zion among other municipalities. I think that was actually carved out by the Senate in some of their negotiations, so that's still to be determined, but we're hoping that something is going to come as a result of that as well. But again, until it happens, I can't count on that. But that's something that's still hanging out there. The census results, obviously, we've talked a lot about the census in the past and what that does for us as far as per capita revenue, as far as funding for projects, motor fuel tax revenues, things of that nature. So it's still going on. If you have not completed the census, please do. But we won't have the results of that until much later this year. We were hoping to have it under a normal situation, we're hoping to hear something pretty shortly, but it was obviously extended to October for the census deadline. Final counts won't come in until after that, and then any implementation of anything as a result of that will be revenue lagged after that. But that's one of the items out there. And then Cannabis Cultivation Center and dispensaries. Flat Rock Holdings, who was applying for medical cannabis cultivation center, that still has not been heard in the Supreme Court, though it's scheduled, to see what the results of that are, whether they'll be granted the license. And additionally, with dispensaries, they keep extending the deadline on when the state's going to kind of close the window on that and start awarding licenses to local dispensaries that weren't already in existence under the medical side. So those are all things that we're working on that could result in significant revenue impact, but any of this stuff is either uncertain or will have a delay in time. So what I would propose is that we have, this is obviously going to be based on the will and schedules of the council, but I would propose that we have special meetings, maybe coinciding with city council meetings in advance of the city council, whether it's an hour, hour and a half, so that every 2 weeks we're revisiting this and coming back with ideas, however crazy, however silly, it spurs ideas, just kind of roundtable brainstorm this, try and figure out how we want to address this going forward, get a list of ideas together and what the impact would be. And like I said, peel those off. If we don't need them, fantastic. But if we do, then we have a plan in place. I would also like to maybe invite some of our financial advisors to those. Alex Branchelis from Fifth Third is well aware of our situation and has helped us in the past, as well as Kay McKenna. They've been our bond counsel and helped us with financial situations, just to see maybe what's out there that they might have ideas on. I would also propose that we reach out to our state and federal legislators to see if, I think they need to hear the situation that we're facing, but they might have resources available during this roundtable discussion that they could provide input on if they'd be able to attend. So wanted to get what your thoughts are on that and see if it's something we want to set up, and if you're okay with reaching out to those individuals to ask them to attend as well.
I think those are great ideas, David, and I would be in favor of having additional meetings to discuss this issue and invite some financial advisors to help guide the discussion for us.
Second.
So I'll make sure the clerk, reach out to you as far as scheduling, whether it might be the next council meeting we have, township meeting, so we might, that's at 6?
6 o'clock.
Okay. So I don't know if we could do a 5 or a 5:30, depending on availability. I mean, you only have a half hour.
Month. We could meet at 6 or 5:30.
Oh, right. So we could work that out, but if that works for everyone, obviously we'll nail down the times, and the clerk will get posting out for those special meetings as well. Okay, thank you.
That sounds good.
Item number 8C, consider waiving fees for variance for community beautification project per Administrator Nathan.
Thank you again, Mayor and Commissioners. As Supervisor Neal said, they're looking for, the request is a waiver of all fees related to the process for a variance related to the planning and zoning, the sign ordinance. That the costs are basically a $605 application fee for the variance, and then the cost of notifying all the individuals per planning and zoning within the area. Largely, it's certified mails and postings on publications. That being said, my recommendation would be the waiver of the 605 application fee, because that's largely staff time and effort without any major direct cash outlays from the city, but that could be a city contribution to the effort. But my recommendation would be that we do have a reimbursement for the costs associated with notification, because that actually is a cash outlay for the city. I don't know. I mean, I understand the challenge you're facing with what we're dealing with. I'm a stickler. We've had that, and regardless of the merit, I think it opens a dangerous to try and find ways around the code, or to, I don't want to use the word slant, because that's not what we're doing, but it becomes a slippery slope of what's worthy of merit to change the code, what has to follow. We have the code in place for the 16 square feet. We're just in a time bind of when we can having to go through this process delays that. But that's where we're at. And my recommendation would be to waive the 605, but not the direct cost of publication and notification.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a discussion or question?
So this allows them to get past the gate to go to planning and zoning, is that correct?
Right, so they could submit the application at this point without having to submit the FIFRA application, and then the process would begin of identifying the properties within the boundaries of the 4 or 5 properties that are presented here, the notification process for us to schedule a planning and zoning meeting and get the agenda on there for them to hear a variance from the 16 square foot requirement in code to whatever the square footage is of the banners presented.
This is just one, if I understand correctly, what was presented to the township board. This is one part of a overall beautification of Zion. And really, this is more of an art project. This is artistic expression rather than a sign. It's not signage in the sense of pointing people to a business or trying to sell something or a political campaign. It really is art. So does it fall under the same guidelines as signage in our codes? If somebody wanted to put a statue up, would they still have to go through this process? Or
I guess my question would be, I don't want to define art. Someone puts a statue up, but what if it's a statue that you don't agree with that's artistic? We don't have an arts district or a code for arts projects.
it's all on private property, though.
Yeah. But we have rules governing signage on private property.
Like Bethel Boulevard and, what is it, the 2700 block of Bethel Boulevard. There's a big horse and a pig and a Statue of Liberty. Did they have to get a permit to put those art objects in their yard?
We don't have anything in the code governing
Okay,
art.
so is this, I guess, is this an art project, Sherry?
As far as we were concerned, it's 100%.
Okay.
If you look around the city of Chicago and all the other communities across the country that are doing this project, it's a word art exhibit is what it is.
Yeah, okay.
So
That's just my comments.
were you all able to meet with the city attorney?
Yeah, he just explained to me what the process is for doing the variance and all of the fees and the hoops you got to jump through for that. I don't think Brian, he put out for producing the signs. I don't know that he's willing to put out
For the process.
for all the rest of it. So he'll just eat the signs and see if Joaquin or somebody wants to do it.
Do you, and you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but do you know what the cost of those signs were? Okay.
I don't know.
So
I was just wondering if rather than the $600 notification, if it'd be possible to reprint that 2x8,
Right.
and then you have,
The-
and then you don't have the process, the hoops to jump
The
through.
problem with that is it's, because it is an art exhibit, the 2x8s, they're small and they don't make the impact, and the goal was to make a statement, right? So that people, and it hits you different at a heart level when you see something one size versus a little sign that says something. And so they don't believe that it will make an impact to do the other way to do it. So they'd rather, he's got apartment buildings in other communities. He just said he'll talk to them.
Yeah, just trying to think of an alternative.
So you're saying the approval here tonight doesn't help your process because they're not willing to go to planning and zoning? Is that right?
Well, not to pay another $600 to get approval through that next phase, right? So either way, you know what I mean, it's still another substantial payment he's got to pay just to try and do something to like bring some positive energy to the community.
I'm sorry, where's the additional substantial payment? I missed that part.
So there's 7 signs that they produced, right? 5 of those are over the 16 square foot. And so in order to get those put on the building, the city has to send out notices to anybody that lives within 250 feet, getting their approval for you to put that sign on. And so that costs anywhere from $100 to $125 per address to make that happen.
Gotcha.
And so that's why I was hoping, so one different question is, painting on their sign, is that considered a sign too? If they were to paint the words on their
It's still considered a banner or sign.
It is, okay, I was just curious.
I think our city attorney has some comments based on the questions that have been asked.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I did take the time to meet with the supervisor. I am not charging the city for that time. It was done, just gratis. I do think that it does. Art is a subjective term, as the administrator correctly pointed out. There is no question in my mind that what is being proposed is applicable under our code. And there are certain regulations that we have to follow under our code, just like we would anyone else coming in. We are, as they say, a country of laws, not of none. And we have to apply these across the board. What is being proposed to you is to cut all costs tonight, save those out-of-pocket costs that the city would be spending to go through with this. So we would be going proverbially upside down if we cut those costs as well. But to the initial question of whether this is applicable under our code, 100% it's applicable under our code. There are signs, and I know that there's some talk of impact, but it seems as though there are signs that are of that smaller size that we're elected to do, that will be posted that are underneath the code, while there are some that do apply to the code, which is why the supervisor and myself did that. So thank you, yes. And again, building director was great in working with me on this.
So, Dave, to get back, your recommendation is to waive the fees for the variance, the $605.
What's before council is a waiver of all fees, a waiver of no fees, or any
So right now, we only have
mix
one
thereof.
total, which is $605. What's the additional cost that we would consider here?
You'd probably be looking at another probably 600 or so. It's 100, 125 per property estimate based on number of properties, over 5, 6 properties.
30 application, so 130, 150 at all.
We might be looking at $750 between $600 and $800, let's say, that we'd be out of pocket if we waived all fees. And if that's at the will of the council, that's your decision. That's what's before you. Is the 605 is intended to cover staff time.
Yep.
So we won't have like I said, we won't have a cash outlay for that versus the additional notification.
I think I just underestimated the cost of the mailing.
Gotcha.
I guess my next question is, so what do we need to do to just amend the code to make it available for artistic projects, or, I mean, because I don't think anyone is really like fundamentally opposed to it being put up, and if we're now just really saying no to this based on $600, that doesn't feel proper to me. So what next steps would we need to take as a council to not have these sort of hurdles next time?
Well, we could look at changing the code, but I'll tell you that process is going to be, that still has to go to P&Z, and that's going to be a longer process than right
That's
now.
because you're looking at this as signage rather than art. So, I mean, people decorate their lawns for Halloween with artistic expressions, and nobody has to get a permit for that. This is a-
Pardon me, yes, you do. If it's up for a month, there's a $55 permit fee you're supposed to get.
Okay.
Yeah, I just found that out.
For any kind of artistic expression. So that if somebody wants to put a gnome in their yard, they would have to get a permit to do that.
And it's more than 16 square feet.
Be a big no.
No, I'm confused, Rich. It's going to be less than 16 square feet.
I mean, I would be in favor of facilitating this to the best of our ability. So whatever has to happen so that we can have this artistic expression for a period of time, I would be in favor of that.
So we'd have to propose an amendment to the planning and zoning commission and ultimately the city council.
And what is that period for this exhibit?
What's that?
What's the duration for this exhibit? How long would they look to leave it?
We had just, when I talked to Rich or somebody that said put a deadline on it, so we were just thinking like through, until October 31st or something for the fall. just to, I mean, the initial idea was just to put it out, see if it makes an impact. If it's stupid, take it down, never do it again. If it's good, if it has a good impact on the community, then actually expand it and see what we can do with other statements and stuff in the community.
I guess the question I would ask, would the township be willing to take on that $600?
No. What my hope is, and I don't know how it works with the rules and regulations, but if there's another way to view it instead of it being viewed as signage. I get that it fits under those parameters, but could it fit under another parameter?
I think in order to run the city properly, no. Because otherwise it becomes subjective for every individual that comes in with an idea, and then at that point, we're just being, respecters of the individual idea, and it's not fair and equal at that point if we try and manage it that way.
When I spoke too quickly when you asked me about the 600, I would be more than happy to bring it before our board if it was something that the township board would be looking for.
Yeah, I mean, my question there, again, we are a city that have our financial constraints right now as well. And from my understanding of this, it seems like some of this should have been addressed well before the signs of the size of the signs, well before this was produced. And I know in the last council meeting, your statement was that people don't know who to contact at City Hall about these things, and I would say that's unequivocally not true.
Actually, in this case, they didn't know they needed to.
Pardon?
My statement is that people don't know that they need to. That was the issue with this, was that they didn't even, and by and large, residents don't realize that there's a lot of things that we need to contact the city for. And me in my position, there's a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, you know what, stop, we need to talk to the city.
Yeah, I mean, we had that discussion about your fence exhibit, and my discussion with you was that you had to talk with Rich Ianson, who's the director of building, property, and zoning. So these signs would fall under really the same guise. So I just want to make sure that our citizens understand if there is a question, and I went to our website to see what was on our website to be very clear about what we need to improve or what's there, and all of the information about signs and permits, very clear on a banner. So I think from our standpoint, from my standpoint, I'll speak for myself, and having been part of the commissioner with the building department, all you have to do is go on our website to find out questions, and you as an elected official understand that. We've had this conversation many times. And I think this is a very good project, but when you start talking about the financial aspect of it, I think if this is something that we don't kill, the city does not kill ideas that residents put forth, but as Administrator Nabel said, they have to be within the guidelines of the code. Some of those codes we have to change, and we can't just change things. We wish we could that quickly. I mean, it's the same if someone comes to you, and I've sent people to you at the township, you have your process and your protocol. And those have to be followed regardless of the situation, and it's no different with the city council. So we're not trying to be the bad guys, just like you're not trying to be the bad guys when our citizens come with support that they need from the township. So I guess...
I think we have a motion and a second, right?
And the motion and a second is to...
For waiving the 605 and then with the mailing and postage per property. I think we're not waiving that. I believe was the motion on the table.
Okay. Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9, departmental commentary. Human Resources Director Karen Graves.
Thank you, sir. Just want to reiterate, all of our job openings are on our website. One of the things that we want to do is keep that update for individuals that are looking for employment. 2 that I want to highlight this evening is our paid on premises for our fire department. We're still hiring for that, so please check our website for all of the qualifications needed for that position. And then again, our part-time coordinator position, 25 hours a week, working with community service individuals to help beautify the city of Zion. So those are two positions that are currently available. Thank you.
Director Ianson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a reminder, this Saturday is the annual city cleanup day between 8 and noon at 2771 Galilee. Staff and volunteers will be there to assist residents, drop off electronics and old tires.
And this is for Zion residents only, because there was some question on one of the Facebook page, social media pages about residents from other communities coming. So it's my understanding that you have to have a Zion City sticker.
Yes.
When you show that will be checked upon check-in at the 2771 Galilee address.
That is correct. That's for Zion residents only.
What about landlords?
Well, if they got city stickers that they live in Zion,
So the landlord, they can't use it to get stuff off of their property in Zion.
Well, I would imagine that would be the residents.
the tenant.
The tenant could be able to do that, whether it's a home or an apartment building. That would be the tenant's responsibility.
I think that can be a little contentious. If I'm a landlord and I'm renting with someone and they happen not to have a vehicle or a vehicle that's big enough to move whatever needs to be removed from the property, and if I'm willing to partner with them to do that, then I don't feel the landlord should not do it. Do we have some other ways to verify residency, or that to me feels prohibitive?
I guess I would ask, I understand your question. I guess I would ask, how would we know if those items were being moved from that Zion property and not somewhere else?
And that's the point, that's the question. But I do think that it'll be prohibitive to some of our residents that do rent. They won't have vehicles, pickup trucks and things like that, vans where they can remove tires and things like that.
If I remember correctly, that if the person can provide an ID with a Zion address, that they would be permitted, according to the flyer.
Get the city sticker or valid ID.
City sticker or valid ID with a Zion address.
And do we have a landlord database, or
Yes, we do.
is that so huge that you couldn't print it out and have somebody validate it at the site? Or
Yes, it is.
Is that large? Okay.
It's a good question and something that we'll have to ponder as we move forward with the cleanup day.
Okay. And the other question was for seniors. Do we have any accommodations for seniors that has been discussed?
No, but we would make an effort to assist if they needed it, for sure.
Going to the property, or just if they can show up with the tires and the electronics?
Well, if they show up, obviously we'll assist them, but if there's an issue where there's some in the alleyway or something they need to get cleaned up, notify us, we're going for that.
And they're notifying through
Building department.
on Saturday, or do they need to call in advance?
I would call in advance, or they can come to the site on Saturday, and we'll have staff there that can assist them.
And one of the things I know in the past that our public service staff has gone out, and the building department has gone out, say the night before, and started to identify sites that might have tires or bigger items that people live in the alleyway. And it's my understanding that those areas will be supervised or be taken care
It's
of.
definitely, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to go ahead and get out in the neighborhoods and be doing that.
Thank you. Sounds good.
All right. Director Roberts?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to update the council on road projects. IDOT has started marking things out from Sheridan to Green Bay. They plan on concrete work in the next couple 2 weeks, and then move into milling and laying asphalt on that area. So that could be kind of busy road for a while. Additionally, with that, we have several roads that the city is going to be redoing. That contractor is starting August 17th. They are adjacent to some 173 also, so you're going to have combined crews out there. Under the city's contract, we're doing 12 blocks this year and 2 alleys to the tune of about $700,000. The IDOT project is about $2.8 million. And then August 10th, which is a week Monday, the contractor for the patching is going to be in town. That's doing some of the large patches. They'll grind and patch a lot of the potholes on the primary roads. That's a project that's running about $240,000. So we're going to see, close to $4.5 million this year in road construction.
One question for you, Director Roberts. So you know which direction they're going to start the 173 project from? Are they running from Sheridan to Green Bay?
I talked to the RE today on that. He is proposing to the contractor to start from Sheridan going west. If that's how it works. There's always bumps. And I already know of one. I pointed out the storm right there by Jewel.
Yeah.
We have had years of patching that. They are going to take care of that. So they're going to have to open that whole section of Thompson up.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Roberts. I think this addresses some of the questions that Mr. Mitchell asked about during citizens' comments. One of the things that we've been focused on the last 2 years is improvement of our infrastructure. And last Friday, we received great news from Senator Bush's office that we received almost $1 million in a capital funding project as part of the capital bill that was passed this past year. So I'm going to take the time to read the statement from Senator Bush. The unsafe alley between the 2100 and 2500 blocks of Joppa Avenue and Zion will be repaired after the city received nearly $1 million state grants. That was announced Friday by Senator Melinda Bush. Ambulances, police, and other first responders have struggled to access this alleyway for years, and this reconstruction project will now allow for first responders to best serve residents who live in the area. Working together with Mayor Billy McKinney and the City Council, we were able to identify and fund this much-needed project. The Joppa Avenue alley has deteriorated to the extent it's no longer accessible to emergency vehicles such as police and fire, resulting in families in the area not receiving the help they need in a timely manner. The city will resurface the alleyway and replace the storm drain so stormwater stops collecting. The money, the funds for the repairs coming from the Build Illinois Bond Fund. And this was a relationship a couple years ago. Commissioner Fisher was our Commissioner of Public Works, and he talked extensively about infrastructure in the future of Zion and what we had to do to get our streets up to a safe level of repair. Mm-hmm. And the initial estimates were about $30 million. And we knew that if we were going to do this, that it was going to take some state funding, some federal funding, which we're still working on, and also a lot of discussion with our state representatives, Melinda Bush and State Rep Joyce Mason. I spent some time in Springfield and met with the House and Senate Appropriations Committee chairs right after I took the position as mayor, and that relationship was established due to the relationships our lobbyists had with those people, and we're able to get in and make a pitch for the money that we needed to improve our streets in Zion. So as we continue this process as this city council, we understand our roads and alleyways need repair. Our public works crew has been doing a terrific job of repairing what they can with the budget we have, but we also continue to seek grants and other funding to make sure our streets are safe and passable for our residents and for people that come through Zion as well. So thank you, Director Roberts, for the update. Administrator Nabel.
Thank you. I touched on it briefly about the importance of the census results, and this is kind of my go-to item until this thing is done, but just for anyone that may not have heard, we do have a census incentive program where if you complete your census and submit the information to Economic Development Coordinator Samuelito Bronson, showing that you completed your census. You are entered into a drawing for there's 3 prizes every month, a $300 cash gift card, a $200 and a $100 for first, second, third. We're going to have a drawing, actually the first drawing for July's entries will be this Friday. For the individuals that have submitted but don't win, they'll roll over. We'll have August, September, and October, so they'll all have 3 more chances to win. So the earlier you get your census done and that submission in, the more chances you have to win. We encourage using that gift card at local businesses wherever possible to put that money back into the community. But it's crucial for the future of Zion and the direction to have our voices heard and make sure we have proper representation, that Congress, legislators, grants, like I said, motor fuel tax. There's a lot of per capita taxes, which is you just get an amount based on the census. So if you get $25 a month per person for motor fuel tax, if we have another 100 people, that's more revenue for streets. So it's important that we get proper counts, and if you can have a chance to win a little money on top of it, it's a win-win. So on our website is all the instructions on how to be eligible for that and how to get your information submitted.
So the other important aspect about this, and I mentioned this at the last city council meeting, that the federal government provides about $675 billion to communities based on the data they provide them. And it goes to help better health care, stronger schools, infrastructure repairs, and also home improvement projects for residents in cities. So it's really important for our residents to stand up and be counted and make sure that we get some of those federal funds by being counted. That's all it takes. Just be counted, show you care about your community, and help us get some of the money that we need to continue to make our community a really good place to live. Lieutenant Velarde.
Thank you, Ray. Zion, as well as some of the other surrounding communities, have had a increase in shootings over the past several weeks. We've had success in making arrests. We have greater success when we get help from the community. So this is more of a reminder. If you are a witness, if you see something, please call the Zion Police Department or Crime Stoppers. You can remain anonymous. We'd rather have the information that would help us solve a crime rather than your name. If you have video evidence, that can be uploaded electronically. We can send you a link to where you can send it directly to us if you don't want to be seen. So that's basically a plea to give us information if you have it. If I can address Ms. Lear for a second.
Yeah.
Before you leave, I'll give you my contact information, and I can meet with you later on to address specifically what some of the issues are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments about gun violence. Mr. McLemore, yours as well. I've been working on, probably the last several weeks, I've been working on a statement about gun violence in our community, and I've been making sure that I get all the facts from our police department. That's something that I intend to release my point of view on it and echoing some of the sentiments that Lieutenant Velarde was talking about. If we're going to stop this in our area, in our city, then we have to speak up. We have to say something, we have to speak up. And there are ways to be able to disseminate this information to our police officers without fear of retaliation and fear of your identity being revealed. So it takes a community effort for this to happen. And in our small town, for me, having grown up here, as so many of us have, it's really difficult to see when you're seeing 17 and 18-year-olds shooting each other at parties or for any reason. I guess there was that old school way that you used to sell things, but I've been told before, what's the word I was told? I was out of touch. But I still think that if we're going to resolve issues, that it doesn't have to resort to gun violence. So please do what you can to help our police officers. They are trying what they can do to help our community safe. But again, we have more citizens than we have police officers. So if we can get your help, enlist your help, that would be absolutely terrific. Chief Lewis?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just to bring you up to speed on our staffing situation, so you're well aware, the council is that back in January we lost a good chunk of people, almost a third of the department in one shot. We're at the point now where last Wednesday we put on one of our part-timers transitioned into a full-time position, so he's now on shift. Tomorrow and Thursday we're bringing on another 2 new full-timers. Monday starts another one, and then we just have one more to go, and that will be back to full strength. Knock on wood.
All right.
So, hoping for the best.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Lewis. Do any of our commissioners have any comments?
See everybody at the recycling on Saturday.
Yeah.
Bring your stuff.
Yeah, and I just have one more comment that Administrator Nabel had talked about. It was about Flat Rock, the medicinal marijuana facility that's been wanting to be here for quite some time. And we've done what we can to help them. I took a trip to Springfield and met with Senator Melinda Bush and what they call the drug czar, Toy Hutchinson, about the possibility of issuing this company a different license. They felt like they should have been issued the last license, and they weren't. And Dave Nabel and I were sitting around one day, and I said the resolution to this would be just to give them another license. So we went down and made the pitch. Now it's in the Supreme Court, and we're hoping for the best that comes out, because that would mean a lot of revenue for us. So right now we've got a lot of irons in the fire. We've been trying to overturn every stone possible to be able to bring funds into our community through grants and every other way. Administrator Nabel mentioned that the Lake County received $121 million. And when we heard that, we were privy of that, again, due to some of the inroads we made with our lobbyists that they have there. We immediately sent out a letter to Lake County and said what kind of help we needed from a financial standpoint going through this pandemic. And I was on a Zoom call with Mary Hart, who is the chairman of the Lake County Board, and she said Zion, Illinois was the only municipality in Lake County that submitted something like that, and it was very detailed. So I want to thank our commissioners and Administrator Nabel for taking the time to put that information together to talk about what our financial needs are and how we are continuing to try to get funding from the state and federal resources. Announcements on August 8th. Commissioner Fisher just talked about this. We have our annual Zion cleanup days, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. It starts at 2771 Galilee. That's the old Munder building. And Ms. Lear, you also talked about one of the things you asked about in your citizen comments were litter along the streets.
Yes.
And I've said this several times, that it's my hope that the first several cleanup days we had, we went out, we had staff and volunteers that would go out and actually pick up trash around the city through alleyways and streets. And what we're asking now in this time is that our residents take on that little responsibility, whether it's a portion of their block, that they can go around each day and pick up some trash.
Well, Mayor McKinney, I live behind Cheryl's, as you know.
Yeah.
And I went to Cheryl's because right there on the corner of 18th and Lewis, Cheryl's has quite a bit of customers. I mean, it's very busy. I went to Cheryl's as a citizen and talked to the owners, and we made an agreement. Once a week, we would clean up the street. I would clean my end, and they would clean their end. Although I have to clean mine more than once, it's working out for us.
Yeah.
But that's what we had to do in order to keep that area clean.
And we need more of that kind of cooperation with our residents. I know there are a lot of residents, as I see in the area in which I live, even as I'm riding my bike or driving through Zion, are taking up those issues. I received a call one day from a gentleman that said his drain was stopped up outside of his house, a storm drain, with probably debris or probably leaves. And I thought by the time that he made that call, he could have gone out there and cleaned it instead of saying, send somebody out from Public Works. And it's something that happens on my corner, 31st and Galilee. Whatever it is, there's a tree that seems to collect there. I go there after a rainstorm and clean it out myself. So we've got to have this kind of cooperation and spirit in our neighborhood that we take on some of these issues ourselves. Our public works crew, I want to say 6 people.
We just hired 2 new,
So 8 now, but you're talking about them being designated in areas and working on areas of different areas of the city. They can't stop a project, a major project they're working on, to go pick trash out of somebody's storm drain. So it's again one of those things. I think it's just being a good neighbor and a good citizen. Help our city workers out. Help your neighborhood out. It's a very simple thing.
It's hard to get other people to care if we don't care ourselves.
Exactly. And so try to lead by example. Also, with the cleanup day, there's also another event in town, the Chicago Bears Back to School event, which is being held at Central Middle School and at CCC. This was an event that happened because of a relationship I had with a former Bears player, a guy by the name of Gary Fensick. Gary grew up in Zion, eventually transferred to Barrington High School, went to Yale, and then ended up playing in the NFL for many years, and we've maintained our relationship. He is the president of the Alumni Association for the Chicago Bears, and we've kept in touch over the years. And we had lunch probably several months ago, just before COVID hit, and he was talking about this event that the Bears have had this in so many communities other than they've had it in North Chicago, they've had it in Waukegan, and he wanted to see that if I could help put him in touch with the people with District 6 to be able to bring the event to Zion. And after some work with the school board, the superintendent of schools, Dr. Keely Roberts, cooperation with CCC in using their parking lot, the event has come to fruition. It's going to feed families in our area. The food bank Lake County Food Bank is involved with this. They're going to feed families. They're going to give out supplies and backpacks, a sanitizer, mask, a bunch of items that our families absolutely deserve and need during this time. So this was a collaborative effort by 2 Zion residents who care about this community and worked with other members of the community to make sure this happened. So it's a big event. It's a big event, and we are all proud to be a part of it. That the Bears, some of their alumni players will probably be here because they're in training camp. Some of the real players won't be here because they're going to be protecting them from any COVID-19, potential COVID-19 cases. So a big day on Saturday, 8 to 12, both events taking place. And Mr. Mitchell, you had a question?
Oh, is this going to be on Zion page?
Yes, they've been announcing it on Facebook page, and the school
District 6 also.
District 6 has been doing a lot of the marketing for the event. On August 18th at 6 o'clock, there's a Zion Township Board meeting, and on August 18th, 7 p.m., Zion City Council meeting. Item number 11, is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks for your comments. Have a good evening, and we'll see you soon.
I guess he's assuming everybody's agreed.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Not is no problem.
Commissioner Holmes?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Sorry.